Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. My dear brothers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. As a quick introduction, inshallah, before entering to the topic, many historians, and some of them were not even Muslims, they were disbelievers, they looked at the case of Arabs and Muslims, and they were very surprised to see how victory came to them. And these people, these Arabs, as a quick summary, some of them, majority of them, were nomads. They were born in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the desert. And they became one, if not the strongest empire on earth. And they defeated the Persians and the Romans simultaneously at the same time. The Persians and the Romans, the two biggest empires at the time. And so many historians looked into it and tried to understand how were these people, no real civilization, no real value on earth. No one was looking, no one was considering the Arabs at the time. People would talk about the Persians, about the Romans, about the Mongolians, not about the Arabs. They're in the desert, no one cares about them. How did those people conquer these and defeated these big empires? And subhanAllah, it is not something that a disbeliever can understand. Although they try to understand it, it is not something a disbeliever can understand. Only a believer will truly understand how Muslims who started from nowhere achieved such great victories and results. And as a comparison, the historian who made the analysis, he said, the case of the Arabs defeating the Persians and the Roman Empire at the time, it is the equivalent today of Native Americans defeating the USA and Russia simultaneously at the same time. Two of the biggest superpowers on earth, defeating them. A group of nomads, no one knew who they were. And so this introduces the topic of today, inshallah, which is, how did Allah Azza wa Jal give victory to the Arabs and the Muslims? What were the causes of victory? So, bi'idhnillah, we can try to understand it and emulate it and repeat it, inshallah. And there's a very famous story who involves Heraclius. Heraclius, he was one of the emperors of Rome. And he asked one of his messengers, they used to send messengers to the Muslims, so sometimes they had business or treaty affairs between them. And he asked him, what was the situation of the Muslims? How did you find the Muslims? And he told him, speak to me truthfully. And the companions, radiallahu anhum, whenever a messenger would come from another tribe, they used to have as a habit to keep him for a certain time. So he would get the right image of Islam. Because sometimes when they would come for a short period, then they would try to bend the truth or say things that are untrue. So they welcomed him in the cities, Muslim cities, to see how were the Muslims with each other. And so this messenger, when he was talking to Heraclius, the emperor of Rome, he said, describing the Muslims, he said, they are horsemen at day, worshippers at night. They don't consume anything without paying its due right. They don't enter except with greetings of salam, of peace. They stand in truth and fight until they overcome the oppressor. And this is not even a Muslim, he's describing the Muslims. And Heraclius said to this, if what you say is true, if what you are describing is true, they will conquer the place underneath my feet. The place where I'm standing on right now, they will come and conquer it. And the people of knowledge, they have gathered certain characteristics amongst the companions radiallahu anhum that leaded them to victory. Causes that they took and they implemented in their lives, so Allah Azza wa Jal chose them for victory. And we know, and we need to remind ourselves, that victory only comes from Allah Azza wa Jal. It doesn't come from us. Yet, we need to be worthy of that victory. Because Allah doesn't choose anyone for his victory. So we need to be worthy of it. So how were the companions and the people whom Allah granted victory? So there are 7 or 8 main points that inshallah I will try to enumerate today without going into too many details, but they're very straightforward. We can understand them very quickly. Number 1, supplications, du'as, and a strong connection with Allah Azza wa Jal. The number 1 tool of the believer, it is supplication, asking Allah Azza wa Jal. And having a strong connection from Allah, there's a wisdom, a hikmah behind it from Allah. The companions who later on conquered a lot of ground, they were the same who at the beginning of Islam in Mecca were being tortured and went through a lot of trials and tribulations. And so when you understand the history of those people, Allah Azza wa Jal was preparing them, was giving them patience so they would be able to overcome the trials that would come after that. They were the same people who were tortured, who suffered a lot of trials and tribulations in Mecca. Second point, tawakkul, reliance on Allah Azza wa Jal, regardless of the appearances. The companions in the majority of the battles, if not all of them, they were always outnumbered. They were always outnumbered. The enemy always, the Romans, the Persians, in all of the holy fights, even in the beginning between themselves, the Muslims were always less than the disbelievers when they were fighting. But it joins to the other point, relying on Allah Azza wa Jal and not judging by appearances. These people had such a strong faith, none of them, when he would see the case, the huge number of the enemy, they would still stand firm and still have complete faith in Allah Azza wa Jal that Allah will grant us victory and Allah will help us. Number 4, asking for honor in what pleases Allah. They sought the honor and the dignity in what pleases Allah, and they understood that your worth and your value are only in what pleases Allah and are only in Islam, not in materialistic things. So these people whom Allah granted victory, some of them were rich, some of them were poor. You know, it's like today, you can have a nice car, you can have fancy clothes, but these things didn't change them. They understood that their worth, it is with their taqwa, how straight they are with Allah Azza wa Jal, their righteousness, their connection with Allah. My value is with what pleases Allah. And we need to completely understand one thing. If someone has all the riches of the world, has everything, not even a billionaire, a trillionaire, whatever it may be, everything, has everything that he ever wants, but he doesn't have Allah, he doesn't have Islam, then truly, 100%, he has nothing. He has absolutely nothing. And a person who has Allah sincerely, not in the appearances, in his heart, sincerely, he has sincerity with Allah, he has a strong connection with Allah, then truly that person has everything. Because everything is in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal. Number 5, not oppressing with whatever Allah favored some over others. The companions radiallahu anhum, when they conquered places, they didn't do it because they were looking for worldly gains or because they were looking for power or politics or land or money. Rather, they wanted goodness for the people. They wanted to bring justice in this land. They wanted people to follow the path that Allah Azza wa Jal ordered us to follow. And so, whenever they were in these situations, they didn't oppress. They didn't use their strength and power to oppress and be unfair and deal unjustly with these people. And that is something that we see often today. Someone has a little bit of power who will fall into all sorts of traps. Corruption, stealing, not the companions of Allah. Number 7, sincerity and aiming for the akhirah. The companions of Allah did not want any reward from men. They weren't seeking any reward or validation from men. They weren't looking for the luxuries. The companions of Allah, and it's not in and of itself something bad. If you have wealth, if you have knowledge, it's very good. It's something that perhaps we need. But the companions of Allah didn't have that in their hearts. They used it with their hands, but in their hearts was only Allah. People nowadays, they love the riches of the world, the luxuries of the world so much that they even start worshipping it. They adore these things. Whereas the companions, although they had, many of them were very rich, were very wealthy, had power, but they didn't have these things in their hearts. They used it to please Allah Azza wa Jal in the path of Allah. But in their hearts, they only sought the satisfaction of Allah. They only wanted that Allah Azza wa Jal will be pleased with them. And number 8, in their description, and it is something that is very important, the companions and the people who succeed in general, the people who Allah Azza wa Jal favors and Allah has guided, are those who establish prayer, those who pay the zakat, those who ordain what is good and forbid what is evil. These are some of the characteristics of the companions which made them victorious in this dunya and in the akhirah. And we need to ask ourselves, how many of these qualities do we have? And depending on the answer, then we know whether we're on the right track or not. And there's a very simple point. Establishing prayer, paying zakat, ordaining what is good and forbidding what is evil. We need to understand the ummah, the community, is made of individuals. And every single one of us has an impact on the other. Every single one of us has a responsibility over himself and over his family, his brothers, his blood brothers, and his brothers in Islam. And if we are a people who do not establish prayer, who do not pay the zakat, who do not ordain what is good and forbid what is evil, then how will we be in times of victory? Will that magically change? No. We will only get worse. And so that is why victory and the steps of victory, they start way before it. They start way before it. We need to return to Allah Azza wa Jal, have a close connection to Allah, and bi-idhnillah, inshaAllah, Allah will grant us this victory. And another very important point, and it is something that is really lacking in the majority of us, and it's a reminder for myself first. Often, and it is sad to see, Islam, being a Muslim, became something of inheritance. My parents are Muslim, so I'm Muslim, or I'm Muslim by name. And although only Allah will judge between the people, it is very important to remind ourselves that we need to be Muslim by choice and conviction. We are Muslims by choice and conviction. It is not something that you give to someone. We choose it. We embrace it completely. We follow it completely. And often, when there are things wrong with our behaviors, it is that there are also things wrong in our intentions, in our way of seeing things, in our mentality, in our conception of things. And you will see people, subhanAllah, you will see two men, for example. They will do the exact same things. They will do the exact same steps. But one of them will have success and tawfiq from Allah, and the other will not succeed. Although they did the same steps, they did the exact same actions. Why is it? Often, it is the intentions who will grant us success. It is the intentions who will rectify our affairs. Because even if we pray and declare we're Muslims and do all of these things with the wrong intentions, everything that we're doing is worthless. And so we need to always renew our intentions and seek sincerity with Allah Azza wa Jal, and always question ourselves. SubhanAllah, Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, he was asking a companion, there was a companion who the Prophet ﷺ told him who were the hypocrites of Medina. And Sayyidina Umar would almost harass that man to make sure that he wasn't on the list. And he was Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab. He was Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab. And he was scared of being a hypocrite. Because, and it's also a word from Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab. He used to say, always question yourself before you are questioned in front of Allah Azza wa Jal. Question yourself before Allah questions you, before the Day of Judgment. Renew your intentions, renew your connection with Allah, renew your faith before it's too late. And understand that, and it's very sad to see, now being a Muslim, even ourselves we don't glorify the name of Allah enough. Being a Muslim is not a small thing. Being a Muslim means we are the last community of truth. We are the last community of truth. Allah Azza wa Jal, among all people, everyone, He chose a single man, Muhammad, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And with him and by him, Allah Azza wa Jal influenced and changed the whole world. One man. And maybe that next person is sitting here. But what is the difference? We need to embrace our religion. We need to understand the worth of our religion. It is not a small thing. It's the opposite. It's the biggest, most important thing. Your worth is in your religion. Your worth is in your Islam. The better you will be with Allah, the better of a believer you will be, the more successful you will be. And understand that our religion is the religion of truth. It is the only religion of truth left. We are the only community of truth left. If we don't do it, no one else will do it. If we don't do it, if we do not defend truth, if we do not stand for truth, as individuals at first, in our lives, we need to let truth prevail in our lives, in our behaviors, in our intentions first. And Allah Azza wa Jal will give us victory with what is near and what is far from us. And we need to glorify the name of Allah in all of our affairs. And we need to understand that our religion, Islam, it stands for the benefit of the believers. It defends the rights of the believers. It wants the best for the believers in this dunya and in the akhirah. Not only in the akhirah. We aim for it. But I guarantee you, if you follow Islam, you will not only be successful in the akhirah, you will be the most successful in akhirah and the most successful in the dunya. And a very, very simple example, very brief example. Whoever establishes his prayers, whoever is steadfast with his prayers, what does it mean? It means he will be the one who will wake up at 5 a.m. Every single day, he will be the one who will wake up at 5 in the morning. And he will start his day at 5 in the morning. Look at the successful people. When do they start? Do they start the day at 12 p.m. or 2 p.m.? No, they start early in the morning. And when we follow out of faith the path of Allah, guaranteed we will find the success in this life and the next. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakumullahu kulla khair. Wassalamu alaikum.